British rock and roll didn't happen in Blackpool, it didn't happen in Wales in the 1950s, it happened on Old Compton Street.
Soho is, and certainly has been, the cultural centre of Europe for the last 50 years.
It will make or break him, so he's got to buy the best, 'cause he's a... And when he does his little rounds,
it's got filmmakers, special effects, architecture, design, fashion, all jammed in, working on top of each other. So it makes it really the most creative square mile in the world.
round the boutiques of London town, eagerly pursuing all the latest fads and trends, 'cause he's a dedicated follower of fashion.
Just 1 square mile in the heart of central London revolutionised rock and roll throughout the world.
Yes, he is. Thinks he is a flower.
From this maze of streets has come music from the likes of the Rolling Stones, The Who and The Kinks. And Soho's stages, however small, have played host to great stars from Jimi Hendrix to Bob Dylan.
But what most people probably don't know about Soho is that while rock and roll greats came here, rubbed shoulders and started their careers, for over 100 years, this was the place where revolutions were dreamed up over coffee and beer. Karl Marx, the father of communism, found inspiration in Soho for some of his most powerful work. Great writers like Dylan Thomas and Francis Bacon were drawn here to write, chat and discuss their ideas. London is a city on the move, and things aren't standing still in Soho either. And that's led some of the biggest names in music and film to come forward claiming that this area is under threat. But what's really going on? Is Soho being sanitised by big corporations, Crossrail and huge developments, or is it about to enjoy a new era of growth?
Oh yes he is, oh yes he is. His world is built round discotheques. Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste.
To answer questions about Soho's future, it's not enough to look at the area from a distance. This is the kind of place that to understand you need to get down there. You need to walk the streets and meet Soho's characters.
Good evening. Drink responsibly. We're doing a Soho mambo. You gotta go down to Dean Street. You don't have to be Greek to go to Greek Street.
You must have played in Soho quite a bit.
I've played in Soho quite a bit.
Can we twist your arm? Could we get you to take us round and show us those places?
Alex, it will be my pleasure. Come on,
Okay,
let's go. Let's go.
Where are we starting?
I think we're starting on Denmark Street.
Down the way from the Tottenham Court Road, just round the corner from Old Soho. There's a...
Go on, what is this place? It looks like a boarded up old shop.
Well, Alex, me old mucker, it's not exactly a boarded old shop. It used to be the 12 Bar Club, which was the sort of mecca for singer-songwriters, which is in the heart of Denmark Street, which you may or may not know, was known as Tin Pan Alley in the 30s and 40s.
Tin Pan Alley.
Well, it was the home of music publishers, and singers would come down here. They would go into different offices. They would hear songs played, and if they liked them, they would take them. And popular songs was sold via sheet music. And then in the 50s and 60s, it turned into a whole music shops for the beat groups, The Who, the Stones, Hendrix, studios. Everybody recorded down here. They used to come out. They used to hang out here. They did a lot of things, and this street is going to be bulldozed soon. I believe the side that we're standing on, hopefully not too soon, leaving us a chance to get away, to make way for shops and things, because there's a new train station. So unfortunately, this great piece of history will no longer be here.
What do you think about, some people say, oh, you could just move it down the street, you could just move this place over there, you could just move it, because you know, London needs to change, so this kind of place can go. What about that?
Okay, move this down the street, move the Vatican to Bristol, and the pyramids to Berlin, and I think that would balance things out.
So who's been in here over the years and walked out with an instrument?
Hendrix would have been down here.
Hendrix?
Oh, definitely, yeah. The Who, the Kinks, the Beatles have been down here.
You can kind of feel it in the air, can't you? It's
Oh, you
full
can
of
feel it.
excitement.
You can feel those notes, those bass notes, vibrating right up your left leg.
Long before online social networking, Soho thrived on meetings of wild and creative personalities on its street corners, down its side alleys, and in its street-side cafes. And while many things have changed over the years, some faces have stayed with Soho on its journey. One music man in particular remembers the heady days when rock and roll came to town.
Because I was born and bred in town, in Marylebone, so when I was a young guy, I used to come into Soho for the clubs, the discos as they were known as, Valbonne, Le Kilt, various clubs in town were mainly aimed at foreign girls that were in London. And they were very respectable, old-fashioned discos. Soho was always buzzing. And then just behind Soho is Denmark Street. So the whole area has been buzzy for many, many years. Soho always had a reputation. It always had the dodgy minicab business, the dodgy strip clubs, prostitutes, whatever. Always had it. It will never be any different. But it had a village life of people that lived in Soho, went to school in Soho, and had a lot of local, very nice, individually owned shops. So there was that village life, and there was this sort of seedy side.
Like it or loathe it, there's no escaping Soho's seedy edge. An image forever linked to the man they call the King of Soho.
My name's Paul Raymond. Welcome to my world of erotica.
Raymond opened the first club in Britain to showcase striptease, the Raymond Review Bar. Mixing the sexy with the savvy, he came to own a vast property empire.
I have always been interested in show business. It's my life, it's my love. Please remember, I have done pantomimes, I have done stereophonic sound shows, I have done non-nude shows. It so happens, and I'm very pleased to say, I have made my name, and it is in fact my forte, I suppose, to present nude entertainment, and I just know how to do it.
Is there anything in your life, aside from losing money, that can really upset you and get through to you and hurt you?
Well, I think financial disasters are more important to me than personal disasters.
Why are you honest?
I suppose if anything happened to my daughter and my son, that would hurt me very deeply.
His daughter Debbie died in 1992, leaving behind her two daughters, Fawn and India Rose. Now the two of them stand to inherit their grandfather's vast estate. And India Rose has just opened her new gallery, the Soho Review, a gentle backwards glance to the legacy of her grandfather.
It was kind of me and my boyfriend, we were kind of a bit, I haven't really been doing anything for a while, and I was like, I want to do something art involved. So the space came up and we were like, oh, it's like perfect for an art gallery. So we started kind of like planning it together, and yeah, it just kind of happened. Everyone's quite shocked actually. They're like, art gallery, you? We want to keep it kind of young contemporary artists, like British artists. Just kind of, because usually these kind of artists normally show in places like Peckham, East London, and it's kind of nice to bring it to central London.
For some, Paul Raymond was an artist. For others, he was the peddler of loose morals and sexual misdemeanours with his dancing girls and strip joints.
When he first opened it, it wasn't CD. It became CD, but that was kind of, I guess, in a way, going to happen. But if you stick naked girls in an area, CD people are going to turn up. But I think it was a good thing for Soho. It wouldn't be what it was now if it wasn't for that. But it did just need a bit of cleaning up, because like all the drugs and stuff could happen. And I mean, that it's just not good. When we used to go on holiday, he loved making me and my sister laugh. And he used to run up and down the hotel and like ring all the buzzers on the doors and then hide around the corner so that we'd all get blamed for it. And he always used to buy us like big bags of sweets from Fortnum's and be like, don't eat them all. Was me and my sister like, okay, Papa, run away.
I know nothing about the windmill. Call me innocent.
Okay.
Okay.
The windmill. We've moved down through Soho. We're more towards Piccadilly Circus now. Now this was a cracker. After the war, the only way they could get around nudity, so there were all these beautiful girls, so they all stood with fans on, but they couldn't move. So they'd stand like that in a pose, and they'd suddenly go. So if you were quick, you might get a quick flash of something naughty. So all the guys would be in, and apparently a lot of big comics started their careers there, so they would come on, and the house would be packed with blokes reading the newspaper. And it would completely die a death, these comics, and then these girls would come on with the fans like that, no movement. And that was the only way they could get around the strict laws. If they moved, then the vice squad would be down on them and they would be closed. But as long as they did,
yeah,
they were okay, and everybody was happy. And that was the only way you could see that sort of nudity and get the flash of female flesh in the public on the street.
It's still here. Are they still doing that?
Now it's a lap dancing club, and as we all know, lap dance is a whole different thing.
And so castles made of sand.
Soho's venues were the magnet that drew people to town. Soho showed London how to party. A new American craze began to sweep across Soho after the First World War. Jazz. While many of the famous music venues have closed over the years, one which is still open and draws a crowd from all over the world is Ronnie Scott's.
Ronnie Scott's wasn't always on this site in Frith Street. It was originally started in 1959, October the 30th, in Gerrard Street in Chinatown. And it was a basement room that cab drivers used to go and have their tea and coffee. And then in the evening, the place would become a jazz club. Jazz was brought into the West End. The West End was a place where you did have lots of bands playing, lots of dance bands playing in the 20s and the 30s, and it's where the gay young things of society would come and, in a way, slum it in London, but they'd also go to the very sophisticated clubs and the hotels where there would be dance bands playing. Each hotel had a dance band. In the Savoy Hotel, they had the Savoy Orpheum, for example. And within those bands, there were musicians who loved jazz, who loved the sound of Louis Armstrong and King Oliver and Big Spider Beck, Sidney Bechet, people like that. So that's where the jazz was being formed. It was being formed through records that these musicians would listen to, but also it was stimulated by the visits by Louis Armstrong and Duke Ellington, who came over here in the 30s and performed at the London Palladium.
Okay, so I suppose we are in the heart of Soho, with probably standing under the sign that celebrates the king or the emperor of Soho.
Yeah.
Paul Raymond, who is no longer with us, and left a large chunk of Soho, properties that he owned, a massive chunk to members of his family, and then it ended up being administered by a company. And just below there we got Madame Jojo's,
looking a bit sorry for itself now, isn't it?
Gay burlesque. It had everything going there. Disco, unfortunately closed down after a nasty incident involving the bouncers attacking some guy, but it's been said that the incident was used as an excuse by the council to shut Jojo's down as part of the general gentrification of the area.
Soho is vibrant, loud and brash in both good times and bad. So when it came to the closure of one of the area's most famous cabaret bars, Madame Jojo's, it led to protesters being out on the street. For them, this was the struggle for Soho's very identity.
I'm helping out with the Madame Jojo's redevelopment. I understand why people did have a go of it. I was quite sad to hear that it shut, but the place needed a bit of a revamp. It was a bit grim in there. Not grim, but like the ceiling was falling off, and I don't even think the louvres worked. So I mean, I think people are going to be happy when it comes back. Well, obviously everyone's scared of change, but half the people that had a go at it closing hadn't been there for 20 years. And I was there 3 days before it shut down. Like, okay. But yeah, everyone's scared of change. And everything is that the media will kind of always, they've loved the negative stuff. They don't, when you give them an answer to all the negative stuff, they don't listen. They're like, no, let's dwell on this. People are interested.
It was a place where anything was allowed, in a way. So it's a shame to have seen it gone through some incident that happened. It is a great shame.
The closure of Jojo's instigated the launch of the Save Soho campaign, fronted by Tim Arnold, the so-called Soho hobo. And since then, he's received the backing of artists, musicians, performers and actors.
Save Soho.
London simply wouldn't be London without Soho. Soho's unique blend of raffishness with a hint of wickedness, its artistic freedom of expression, its place as a centre for the gay, lesbian and transgender community, all this give London an extraordinary gift, and the metropolis would be so much less of a place without somewhere like Soho.
There's a bubbling atmosphere here, which I like to think, and it sounds a bit hippy-dippy, but there's something in the earth here, and that maybe it's something to do with the ghost of Mozart and Karl Marx. I noticed that a lot of the people that I was writing about in the songs were leaving, or had died, or were being forced out, and it started to feel like maybe singing songs isn't always enough, you know. I like to think music is enough, but I think sometimes you have to go a bit further, maybe like Dylan and Joan Baez did, and you have to kind of stand up for something that you believe in, and that's kind of why Save Soho became a thing. Boris, you know, Boris is the first. That's how it all started. I wrote a letter to Boris Johnson when Jojo's closed, and just asked him to become proactive in taking an interest in protecting the performing arts, and that's my thing. You know, and that's what Save Soho is. It's about the performing arts. He asked me to give him a tour around Soho, which I did, and we sang together, and that was fun.
Don't go changing Soho. Give back to Soho, so it carries on. Very good.
We've had like 7 decades of music emerging in Soho that really wouldn't have happened anywhere else. Soho is that's the kind of the beacon for this kind of creativity. So if it happens here, there's not a hope for anywhere. So that's why I think it's really important to bring so much attention to this area.
The Save Soho campaign has drawn an increasing number of performers, many of whom feel that their spiritual home is being eroded.
It was seedier then, which I kind of liked. It had an edge to it. I mean, it was kind of seen as our red light district, you know. That's sort of gone, really. I mean,
are you sad about that? Sad that so is it being sanitised?
Well, yeah, I'm sad about the sanitisation of it all. I mean, it also used to have venues, live venues. Now we've only got poor old Ronnie Scott's here, standing proudly on its own, you know. But there used to be rock and roll venues. I mean, this is the home of the Marquee and various other places, and all of those kinds of things have gone. Of course, Madame Jojo's was the great cabaret venue, and I was a big fan of Jojo's because, well, I mean, apart from anything, it was one of the few places that would employ me. So I was very sad to see that go.
But amongst the closures, an exciting new project has found fertile ground.
I've always loved radio. I love Soho. It's the heart of a lot of industries. It's got great character and it's got great characters. I thought that if we could create something called Soho Radio, it would be a winner.
There's a new thing going around. That's the sound of the Birmingham Spirituals on the Crown record label, and it's a B-side to a song about loving Jesus. Most gospel songs are, funny enough. This record is stunning, and it goes out for everybody who requested it on my Facebook page this week, about 25 of you.
You know, Soho's always been the bohemian kind of capital of Europe, and over the last kind of 5 or 6 years, we've seen a trend where corporate chains have kind of replaced the independent businesses. The council have cleaned up Soho and got rid of the vice area, and whether people like it or not, that kind of seedy side of Soho is what made it so creative and so interesting. So I've been in and out of Soho since probably the mid-80s, not as a resident but as a business owner in Soho, and I've seen it decline. Let's be honest, it's all about rent. You're never going to get any support from the local council because it's about rates, it's about business rates. So I think a landlord will always prefer a Starbucks over an independent coffee shop, you know, and that's just the way it is, that's the nature of things. So whether or not they can reverse the decline of Soho as the creative capital of the world, I don't know, but I do know that this place is a beacon of hope in a rather depressing area. You know, Soho was never like this. This is the first I've seen it. You know, it's such a kind of a, you know, an identikit kind of place. It's a shame. It's a real tragedy, actually.
Ironically, right next to one of Soho's most controversial closures, Madame Jojo's, Soho Create decided to open up their offices, and their aim was to celebrate all that's creative in Soho.
Soho Create is probably the biggest collective conversation about creativity taking place in the country. So we have 85 of the country's top creatives coming together in Soho. They're given a full hour to talk with other creative people about their process and their journey, about what they do and why they do it. I think very little has changed, because I think the essential thing about Soho is it is full of creative people, and it always has been. And what that gives it is a real sense of a kind of loud, mouthy, creative, inspirational place. So you can go back 30 years and it was that, and it still absolutely is that. It's still a place when you walk into it, you feel like you have to have really, really good ideas because everyone around you is having them, and you bump into all sorts of creative people that are doing similar things to you, whose process is similar to you, who are all working on creative stuff. So I think it feels like a very, very inspirational place now, and it always has done. I think they're concerned about the changes that are happening, and they're concerned that some of the very positive things about Soho, its inclusivity, its pricing structures, things like that, are going to get thrown out. And I think that's, you know, that's quite an interesting concern.
But for some, this story isn't new. For over 30 years, the Soho Society have fought against what they see as mass development in their area.
It is both an opportunity and a threat, like all of these things, in some ways, as money is coming in. You know, as wealthy Greeks or Russians want to put their money here because they, you know, the UK has its own currency. It's by and large not very corrupt, and it's got a legal system, so people feel that the asset that they bought is secure. That's coming in, but I mean that's true from Knightsbridge across virtually now to, well, certainly to the city and even the near East End, and that's a real problem. And Soho can't be isolated from that. It's not you know, somebody on the top floor on a creaky staircase, you know, the artist in a garret sort of world. This is really expensive real estate, and those aspiring. So the threat part of it is that the young people wanting to start up a little business together, 2 or 3 of them at design studio or something, they can't afford it around here, which they probably could have done 20 years ago. They have to go out to Shoreditch or Hackney or somewhere else.
So it's been a bit of a poison chalice in a way. The area's cleaned up, but with it being cleaned up, effectively big money's moved in here. So in that case, would you say Soho needs saving, and if so, who does it need saving from?
Well, no, I think Save Soho is an oversimplistic title. I understand, you know, it's S&S, Save and Soho, but no, it's not that. I mean, there is organic change in terms of the buildings and everything else, but Soho is symptomatic of what is happening to central London. It is an incredibly successful world city. It just happens to be located in England. It could be located anywhere. And money is inexorably being drawn to the centre of London, and that is inexorably pushing up prices.
As this row intensifies, pressure on local politicians is growing. And that pressure is coming from both campaigners and developers alike. And at the heart of the row is the cost of rent.
I don't think rent caps have ever successfully operated anywhere other than to sort of to ossify a particular group of people and give them perhaps an extraordinary advantage over the market, which then means that the vibrancy, the change, the opportunity to reinvent itself is taken away. That's not what Soho's about. I think there have always been concerns about sanitisation and gentrification as things change. But from my point of view, part of Soho's character is that it changes. These buildings weren't necessarily here when it was laid out in the 18th century. And certainly the occupiers and the types of occupiers have changed over the years. Historically, there have been waves of immigration which have influenced the activities which have taken place within the buildings, whether it was Italians or Chinese or all sorts of people who have come and made Soho their home and added to that unique blend which is part of the character and diversity of Soho. So I think that change is part of what makes Soho special, and we have to accept that it will change rather than in some way think it should be set in aspic with only the current occupiers that are here at the moment having a right to be here in the future.
One change that no one can ignore is Crossrail. It's Europe's largest construction project, a new underground railway that promises to slash journey times across London. It'll run from Reading under central London to Abbey Wood in the east. In all, it's estimated that Crossrail will place an additional 1.5 million people within 45 minutes travel time from the centre of London. But with a new station just outside Soho on Tottenham Court Road, some see this as simply the next step in forcing out the locals to make way for new developments.
For the shops on Oxford Street, it's a huge opportunity. Probably for the theatres, it's good.
Crossrail is a huge threat, particularly to those of us that live here, because part of the reason we live here is it's a village. People forget Soho's a village, and then the other side, it's really exciting as well. But exciting is one thing. 48,000 more people coming in each day.
Isn't that money? Isn't that money for the businesses, money for the area?
48,000 people a day. It turns this into Oxford Street, Regent Street, Shaftesbury Avenue and the Charing Cross Road.
We often feel that we take the blame for all sorts of things, whether they are national policy or whether they're things over which we actually have any control. Crossrail was a London-wide project which reflects the success of Crossrail as an international city. It's a much-needed upgrade to the transport infrastructure that is required to get people to and from the centre of London safely, and indeed across London from east to west. Unfortunately, we get criticised for not doing enough. We get criticised for doing too much in terms of allowing development.
Crossrail is the most extraordinary infrastructure project ever. It's absolutely massive and incredibly exciting that suddenly all those new people are going to be coming into London to work. How London deals with that is a really interesting challenge to have.
Soho is evolving, but into what it's difficult to say. Some want to preserve it, others want to develop it. But everybody wants a piece of the world's most creative square mile. And so the struggle for Soho will drag on, and where it will be in 10 years from now is far from certain.
Will Soho be born again? If it is, it won't be in the way that it was. It will be in a new way, it will find a new path.
I don't know how you save a large part of a city. And does that mean sort of encasing it in cotton wool or aspic, in which case, no, that would be the worst thing you can do. Cities have to evolve. They're very lively places, and Soho is about the most liveliest place you're likely to find anywhere.
As long as it keeps the same buzz that it's got, the bars, the clubs, the restaurants, it's always been like that. Whether it's old-fashioned discos or strip clubs or bars or restaurants, it's all basically the same. It's just got more modern and more of it.
Soho will never lose its identity. It's also one of those places that's always adapted over the years. And so I don't like when people are like, oh, it's changing too much. It's like, well, it's always changed.
I think it will carry on. I think it's piece by piece, step by step. I don't think it's, it's going to be this plateau of contentment that's going to happen. I think it's just a day at a time, enjoy the moment and make it work.
I watched you suffer.